Talktainment Radio Worldwide Sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and not necessarily those of Talktainmentradio.com, 3MR Production, its ownership, management, or staff.
We got the power. The power. The power. The power.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard, the world's greatest radio. Oh, my goodness. Of course, you know what's packing the headlines. Washington Navy Yard shooting as it happened. Let's go and listen to a little bit of this. This is about gunman Aaron Alexis. And it seems that we're having quite a few of these, and a lot of this stuff is coming up here recently. So we need to understand what's going on, and I think this is where we bring in Mr. Fuller in just a second.
We left the building, there were still shots in the building.
He was far enough down the hall that we couldn't see his face, but we could see him with the rifle, and he raised and aimed at us and fired, and he hit high on the wall, just as we were trying to leave.
We still don't know all the facts, but we do know that several people have been shot and some have been killed. So we are confronting yet another mass shooting. And today it happened on a military installation in our nation's capital. It's a shooting that targeted our military and civilian personnel. These are men and women who were going to work, doing their job, protecting all of us. They're patriots, and they know the dangers of serving abroad, but today they face the unimaginable violence that they wouldn't have expected here at home.
All right, Mr. Fuller, how are you, sir?
I'm still learning.
All right. Mr. Fuller, I'm sure you, as well as everybody else in the world, has been following this situation on Aaron Alexis, 31 years old. All of a sudden, there was a second and third shooter. Then all of a sudden, they rule out a second shooter. And then all of a sudden, there's a call for gun control. I mean, it's the same scenario, written the same script. You go back, you follow Lee Harvey Oswald, and you study that scenario. Go back to McKinley, and even go back further than that. It's the same scenario, rewritten thousands of times, and yet people still fall for it. Mr. Fuller, you've looked into things like this for years. What's your read on this, Mr. Fuller?
Well, it's just a continuation of what I was taught even on Christmas morning as a little boy, as a smaller boy. Go to the Christmas tree where you are supposed to be celebrating the birth of a Savior, a person of peace, in the form of Jesus in the Christian religion, and you look under the Christmas tree and you look for cowboy rifles in this area of the world. I always did. I wanted a Red Ryder rifle, BB gun, and coming right out from under the Christmas tree, run right outside and run and show my friends up and down the road. I mean, my new BB gun, or my new cap pistol, and before noon on Christmas, when everything is supposed to be about peace. I mean, I'm running around the house, around the neighborhood, rather. It was a country road, rather, in back in those days, and pow, pow, pow. So fast forward, 2013, pow, pow, pow. This is what you get. What you put into the computer is what comes out. This just didn't start. I mean, gangsterism is glorified in song, in novels. You have books, stacks of books, whole warehouses full of books. More coming off the press as far back as I can remember. The corpse in the trunk, the body in the attic, the body in the basement, the headless corpse, murder in the Rue Morgue, murder on Fifth Avenue, murder, 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 murder. Titles on fancy books, books that could be telling you how to grow things, how to grow a better garden, how to feed your family. I mean, by just going out in back of your house and not having to go to the grocery store so much and coming up with organic food and whatnot. Could be books about that sitting in the bookstore window. But no, it's about the bloody dagger, the shadow nose, and all kinds of ominous books about whodunits, they used to call them. Whodunit. I mean, we found the body down by the river. I used to read old Earl Stanley Gardner novels.
Yeah, the Perry Mason guy.
Yes, right. And I used to read a lot of them. Ellery Queen, Raymond Chandler, on and on and on.
Murder, She Wrote, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yes, Murder, She Wrote, a long-running series, one of the most long-running series on television. Murder, She Wrote. Murder on the Orient Express, that's an old novel.
Oh, yeah.
It keeps being revived, and they keep making different type of movies about it. And then you have the spectacular movies where cars are being wrecked. People need cars for transportation. Cars are very expensive.
Right.
But you'll make a movie and you'll tear up 50, 60, 80 cars. Think nothing of it.
Yeah.
Cars turning over, and, you know, with people in them. And cars bursting in flames. That's a pretty one. That's supposed to be exciting. So when somebody gets up in the morning and stretches and says, well, I think that I'll do what it seems like the society is telling me is what people really like to pay attention to, and I'll walk down the street and see if I can shoot somebody. Now, a lot has been made, and it should be, of what happened just a few days ago, but in Washington, D.C., the capital of the world, some people say, they have the flag flying at half-mast. Truth be told, and if you think logically speaking, that flag, if it's about mourning, should be at half-mast at all times. It should never be at the top of the pole. Why? Because there's slaughter going on all around it, all the time, right here in what is called the capital of the world. Slaughter. You can't walk the streets without looking over your shoulder. You can't go to the grocery store right in the area where the incident recently happened, where there's a naval installation getting ready to send sophisticated equipment all over the world that has to do with keeping the peace, it is announced. When? Right outside the walls. And that's interesting that you have walls around the Navy Yard. Walls against whom? Is it the people right outside the walls? The people outside the walls are supposed to be peaceful. But you have all kinds of walls and fences all over what is called the capital of the world. This should be the safest place on the planet, along with what they call the so-called Middle East, the Holy Land, they call it. It seems like everything is out of order everywhere on this planet, truth be told. And it has to do with the way people think and the way people are taught to think. That's what all the evidence shows. People act according to the way they think, and they think according to the way they have been taught. And that's the logical way to look at it in a compensatory opinion.
So, based on that, you're saying that it has to be examined within that context that this man, if he is who they say he is, and in my mind that's always suspect, that if he did all of the things, first there was one shooter, then there was two shooters, then there was all of a sudden, as usual, the other shooters just disappear. It just has all the earmarkings of something a little bit. If you go back, like I said, to Oswald, even further back, James L. Ray, all of them, you'll see that there seems that same pattern, Mr. Fuller, emerges all the time. Why?
Well, I'm saying, I just went over a litany of it. I myself, as a small boy, I didn't have anything on my mind except what I would learn from the older people around me and what people said to me, my environment. But I would look forward to getting a newspaper. Long before I could read a newspaper, I would look at what they call comic strips. And the comic strip that I would look for mostly was Dick Tracy. And I would see Dick Tracy and other people in that comic strip. Now, a comic strip is supposed to be something that makes you laugh. But I would see people shooting people, and people preparing to shoot people, and people glorifying shooting people. And that's what I look for. I look for comic strips like The Phantom Knows, and Jungle Jim, all about a white man going into the forest and shooting people, the savages who were there in the forest, and on and on and on. Everybody with a rifle and a sidearm, everybody in a comic strip. And even the comic strips that are supposed to be the essence of comedy had violence. I would see comic strips like Bugs Bunny and people hitting each other over the head and having knots on their head, rising very high. And that's supposed to be funny. You hit somebody over the head and you get a knot on their head, and the knot on their head would rise up maybe 2 feet. And I'm supposed to laugh at that. I'm 6 years old, but this is what I'm getting. So later on, maybe, if I hear about somebody just walking leisurely through a city and firing at people, duh. Does anybody make the connections? Anytime, ever? This is what it's all about. And if you have a system that glorifies, and people even dress up in uniforms and whatnot, and relive something called a civil war, when there's nothing civil about any war, when people are killing each other. But got to take off from work. From building houses and doing constructive things, and have a quote unquote reenactment of a quote unquote civil war. Let's have the Battle of Sharpsburg all over again. Not enough people died when the real battle happened. Let's just relive it. Let's get the adrenaline going. Let's get the feeling of that. Death and destruction. Let's reenact it. And we go down this draw and up this hill. And now this is where we will position the cannon. And let's open fire on the people as they come up the hill and kill as many of them and reenactments and have them fall down. Bang, bang, bang. like on Christmas morning. You're dead. Fall down. And then they want to know why there's gunfire, even as we speak, in the so-called Holy Land. Well, what kind of recipe are you sending out? Daily. As far back as anybody can remember. What goes into the computer is what comes out of the computer. That's logical.
Well, that's a lot. There's a lot going on with that. Some people are saying that it's the first thing that comes up is that there's gun control. And then USA Today says, who is he? Everybody wants to know who this man is. When you look at his background, it just appears that, Mr. Fuller, this man is able to move around. He's allegedly had some shootings in the past, and yet he still has top secret clearance at places. Something just, to me, something don't add up. Just doesn't add up. And then, but of course they threw in the fact that he was angry about racial discrimination. So here comes, we knew the race angle was going to come from somewhere. We just didn't know quite how they were going to present it. Now we know. Mr. Fuller, let me get your comments on this race thing.
Well, from what I understand, the person that they're talking about is classified as black. And so we're in a system of white supremacy. So that goes with the territory. Anger about being a victim of racism. That is normal. That is normal. And it might manifest itself all kinds of ways. Usually it manifests itself on black people killing black people exclusively, because that's the first people that they see. Because they're angry and they thrash about, and you have gangs. I mean, sometimes black people getting together to go down the block and kill other black people, because everybody's supposed to dislike anybody who's black. That's another thing you're taught. That's what I was taught. Oh, if you're a black person, there's something wrong with you. The creator of black people made an awful mistake, and that has to be corrected. So if you see anything on this planet in the form of a person, and that person has black skin, you do harmful things to that person. You're supposed to suppress that person. You're supposed to even have fun by doing harmful things to that person. Why? Because that person has dark skin. And the darker the skin, the more harm you're supposed to do to that person, if you can call it a person. At one time, it wasn't even called a person. It was called property or a thing or something that you use, and certainly something that you control and corral and brand and beat and kick and stomp and think up 10,000 names to call it that are all derogatory. And so, when a person looks in the mirror and sees that they're in that category of something to be abused and kicked around, and you look around in a society where people are being taught and systematically encouraged to abuse people, so you might just say, well, I'll join some of the abuse. Since this is what breathing is all about, this is what people were created to do, this is all that I see around me, I see that the greatest heroes are people who carry guns and swords. There are statues all over the place with people who have swords and guns. Even when you talk about things that are not directly connected, or not supposed to be, like in the arts, there's an award called an Academy Award for making what you call magnificent movies. And they have an award called a Oscar. But if you look at the stature of the Oscar in the form of a person, that person has a sword What is the sword for? You only give out awards for people who carry swords? Where is the award for the people who cure people? Oh, that gets honorable mention somewhere on the scrappy back pages of some dusty book, maybe. And nobody's supposed to remember them anyway. I mean, the people who are at the hospitals waiting for people to be brought there who have been shot. What kind of mention do they get? None. But somebody who guns down somebody gets a statue in the public square of every small town.
Stay right there. More to come. We're going to ask the question, is this an imitation? Because all of a sudden, black people have gotten into the fray of mass killings. The other thing, is this a counter to the image of Trayvon Martin? Stay right there.
We go where you go. Download the new Talktainment Radio app to your Android, iPhone, or tablet. Now you can take us wherever you go, and it's free. Download today. The world's greatest radio. The way it should be heard.
Would you like to increase your physical well-being without frightening or harmful side effects? Do you believe in aliens, UFOs, or things that go bump in the night? Would you like to find ways to relieve stress and tension naturally? Have you ever wondered what a psychic might tell you? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then join us at the Universal Life Expo on Saturday and Sunday, October 12th and 13th at Veterans Memorial. Admission includes access to over 110 free lectures, being able to walk a peaceful labyrinth, watching the construction of a sacred Tibetan monk's sun mandala, and visiting almost 350 booths filled with body, mind, spirit treasures, products, and practitioners. Volunteers are admitted free, and to volunteer, call 1-855-4ULE-XPO or send an email to ulevolunteers@yahoo.com. For more information, details, and coupons, visit uleexpo.com and call us at 1-855-485-3976.
Richard Holt, research chemist, University of Rio Grande in southeastern Ohio. With your skin, you can see your condition. Richard's Remedy is a multi-purpose cream that works on a variety of skin conditions. I sell it in a 1-ounce container through the internet for $12.95 at richardsremedy.com.
All major credit cards accepted. Call 937-607-4259 or go to email info@talktainmentradio.com for a free sample of Richard's Remedy. Talktainmentradio.com. Food for thought.
Did you know that we spend 1/3 of our lives sleeping? If a person lives to be 90 years old, he or she will have spent about 32 of those years sleeping. But don't think that if we just spent more time awake, we could accomplish more in life. Our bodies don't work that way. Not getting enough sleep can contribute to stress, disease, obesity, poor memory, poor judgment, and a decrease in our abilities as we age. Lack of sleep causes accidents on the road and in the workplace. We need about 8 hours of sleep each night, and young people need even more. To that end, we should not consume caffeinated drinks past early afternoon. We should start to wind down as we near bedtime and make our bedrooms conducive to good sleep, no light exposure, and a cool temperature. I guess I and many others should no longer fall asleep by the light of the television.
That's another Food for Thought. To hear additional Food for Thought, stay tuned to TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard.
T-Mobile presents The Simple Choice.
With T-Mobile, I can walk out with the new Samsung Galaxy S4 for way less than at AT&T. We have a big family. T-Mobile.
Awesome. Well, now we'll all have the coolest phones in school. It almost makes up for the social stigma of living in a shoe. You live in a shoe.
Choose to spend less upfront at activation for your new Samsung Galaxy S4 at T-Mobile.
Every baby can have the freedom to move their way in Pampers Cruisers. They adapt at the waist, legs, and bottom with up to 12 hours of protection for our driest, best-fitting diaper. Pampers.
We're cracking down on Medicare fraud.
The health care law gives us powerful tools to fight it.
To investigate it,
prosecute it,
and stop criminals.
Our senior Medicare Patrol volunteers
are teaching seniors across the country
to stop, spot, and report fraud.
You can help.
Guard your Medicare card.
Don't give out your card number over the phone.
Call to report any suspected fraud.
We're cracking down on Medicare fraud.
Let's make Medicare stronger for all of us.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
Years ago, identical twins were separated at birth. Chris Paul was destined for life with basketball. Cliff Paul was destined to become a State Farm agent. They shared one invaluable trait. They were both born to assist. Find an agent born to get you to a better state.
You got the power.
All right, we have to. We are dealing with a number of things as it relates to the situation that happened, of course, yesterday. And I'm sorry, not yesterday, 2 days ago, the Navy Yard shooting. And the first thing one of the things that pops in my mind is that it reminds me of the drive-by shootings in the black community. How for years black people were watching movies of gangsters running around shooting from the car. Then they started imitating that later on. Now, for years, you've watched years of mostly white males doing mass shootings and mass killings because historically, it just wasn't something you saw a lot of black folks do. Not only are we seeing the drive-by shootings, now we're starting to see the black faces up front on some of these mass shootings. And at the same time, it's rather interesting that this face is black, because we just had a situation with Trayvon Martin where a lot of sympathy was generated for the killing of black males. A lot of talk about black male life being expendable, et cetera, et cetera. Now, in the midst of all this, here comes a black male, sure enough black male, bald-headed, looks Sudanese almost. So no question about him being black. And all of a sudden, he is is up front. They say he's doing all this shooting. He's killing people. Now, what becomes the counter image to Trayvon Martin becomes plastered all over the world. The man with the 2 A's, Aaron Alexis. And if you look at his background, all the places he went, all the things he's done, this is indeed a strange character. It just looks like something is a little bit more to this than meets the eye. But it's a counter image. So let me bring in Mr. Fuller, Mr. Neely Fuller. Ms. Fuller, before we go any further, you can pick up Mr. Fuller's 2 definitive works at producejustice.com. Make sure you go there. Just hit tap in producejustice.com, and follow the prompts. It takes you right there. By the way, if you miss us live, you can also go get Mr. Fuller's podcast. Go to talktainmentradio.com, hit programs, and then put in compensatory concept. Bam! You got all the podcasts. The other thing is, if you miss the show, or if you know someone who misses the show at live at 10 a.m., you can always catch us tonight, 10 p.m. You'll hear a replay of this program at 10 p.m. tonight on Talktainment, exclusively on talktainmentradio.com, the compensatory concept. Mr. Fuller, the sympathy that poured out for Trayvon Martin in some quarters, and then all of the imitation of these mass killings, it just seems that something here is not making a lot of sense. But let's start with the Trayvon thing. All of a sudden, the black man was looked upon as this sympathetic character for about 5 minutes. Now you get Aaron Alexis' face planted all over the world as this mass killer. Mr. Fuller, let me get your take on this.
Well, there's mass killing going on all over the world, and has and always been, because that's what the system of white supremacy is about. And they are definitely not happy, with any peaceful situation at all. Mass killing is what they are about. That's what they have glorified in their history. They glorified Julius Caesar and people like that. People that just went about tearing up stuff. Alexander is called Alexander the Great. What is he known for? He's not known for making Twinkies. He's known for killing people. And so naturally, down through history, when they encountered, when somebody thought up the idea of putting all the world on a scale of doing all the world's business on the basis of what color somebody is, naturally that spilled over into that, in the form of what they call an invention called racism, in the form of white supremacy. So that was just an extension of the old idea of just killing people, and now we have some people that we can classify as black, and we can set up a system where you do harm to these people nonstop. You burn midnight oil, just doing nothing but trying to figure out a way to do harm to people who we classify as non-white. And the darker the skin, the better, the more harm we do to them. And then we will just set up an entire world system based on doing nothing but that. That would be the reason for breathing. That would be the reason for all of our areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Just figure out ways to mess with these dark-skinned people and have everybody in on it, including the dark-skinned people themselves. And that will be the way that we will run the entire world, and that's because we think that maybe this is the way the world should be run. This is what we were created to do. So we spend nonstop time. We spend all of our educational system pointed toward that. We build armies and navies and air power and drone missiles and whatnot. I mean, do harm to these dark-skinned people. Just have them running and screaming in all directions at all times and whatnot. And when their things kind of quiet down and whatnot, and you got them under control, you get a little bit bored with that, just do it to white people. I mean, and because this is thrilling, you know. This is how we entertain ourselves. Let's go over to the Roman Colosseum and watch somebody being fed to the lions and whatnot. And then we get a little bit bored with that. Now let's get back on to what we really are all about, and that is doing something to the dark-skinned people of the planet. What can we do with them now? Well, let's see. We haven't done anything with them that's unique sexually lately. So let's think up ways to cause more confusion with them sexually and have them embrace it and then stand back and laugh at their shenanigans. And that will keep us entertained for a while. And then when we get bored with that, then we'll go back to just killing a bunch of them, which we never really stopped doing. And we always have them killing each other, so much so that we don't even get their names spelled right in the news. I mean, who cares? When they're down there slaughtering each other in what they call their little gangs on their side of town. I mean, that's the best they can do with themselves and each other. So just let it go on and on and on. And this is what life is really all about until we think of something else. But we haven't thought of anything else, so let's just keep doing it. And this is what the summation is. And so they have made everybody on the planet into what you might functionally call monsters and monstrosities. Now, a monster is a person who has just completely lost it, you might say, to use a slang expression, and just might do anything. A monstrosity is what the rest of the people are, who are preparing to be monsters, maybe, in one flavor or another. And that's what we all have been. The very fact that I'm talking about this on the radio, I should be talking about how to build a house. That's what this conversation that we're having now. How to make a better foundation for a house, or how to see to it that sinkholes don't develop. And this is what conversation should be about all over the world. Not about some shooting, but we are forced to be monstrosities by writing books like I have about racism. There's not supposed to be any such thing as racism. So I spent an entire, what you might call lifetime, if you can call it life, my entire existence on the planet, addressing something called racism, when I should be trying to figure out how to make organic cucumber, one that I can grow without pesticides, or better quality of broccoli without any genetic engineering and doing some tweaking with what the Creator has already created. I don't need to do all that tweaking with a lot of artificial this and artificial that. Artificial food. You have artificial values, artificial sex, artificial religion, artificial so-called economics. Everything is artificial in this system of white supremacy and becoming more and more so. We're eating plastic food now, and that's being glorified. We have plastic values. Our relationships, our smiles are all plastic. So much so that literally they are plastic, because now we have plastic surgery in our faces and tattoos all over that. And we're becoming systematically more and more insane, because we are devoted to insanity, mostly on account of the latest actors who are in charge of everything, and that is not all white people, but those white people who have chosen to run the entire planet on the basis of something called racism, which is just another addition to the royalist concept that's based on mistreating people and enjoying it. That's what it's for. Mistreating people and enjoying the mistreatment.
Now, Mr. Fuller, this thing I wanted to get your thoughts on how this could be used as a way to counteract the image of a Trayvon Martin that's been out there for a while. Do you see this as a possibility, Mr. Fuller?
Oh, well, the racists are always trying to confuse people. You can't dominate people and misuse people over a long period of time without confusing them. So they have all kinds of ways of confusing people, and this is just another way of confusing people. I mean, the big, bad, black bogeyman that's running the world. Now, they are practically, the news coverage that this person is getting, Mr. Aaron Alexis, allegedly, face, like you said, black face, the poster child, flashed all over the world, and this is the bogeyman that's causing all of the world's problems, when that person is nothing but just another statistical victim of white supremacy. That's who he is. That is his standard label. That's what he was before he was born, when he was in his mother's womb. That's what he was, a victim of white supremacy. And the victimization culminates in whatever it is that he does, because we haven't had but one teacher, and that's the white supremacists themselves. If you are black, if you are non-white on this planet, you haven't had but one teacher, and that's the white supremacists. Those white people who believe in mistreating people based on color. They are our teachers. They are our instructors. Everything that we do, we learn from them, because we have had no other teachers. There's no evidence of anybody else teaching us except them. That's who taught me. That's why I was running around the house at 7 years old, 8 years old, I don't remember exactly, on a Christmas morning, saying, pow, 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 fall down, you're dead, even to imaginary people who weren't even there. I was imagining that people were there for me to shoot. Where did I learn that? In the womb? No. From the usual suspects, the white supremacists, that's who.
So you're saying that this is entirely possible, because it all of a sudden it's like a game. We're gonna praise you or support you and pity you, and then we're gonna turn around and condemn you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then they laugh about it. They make jokes about it. Everything is a joke with them when it comes to something destructive, particularly of non-white people. Non-white people are a joke. More jokes. There are more jokes about black people on this planet than about any people that ever existed. Where did the jokes come from? Why would you just make a joke about somebody's dark skin when the Creator created dark skin for a reason? For whatever that reason is. If you got a beef, if you want to put it in gangland terms, street terms, ghetto terms, if you got a beef, don't have a beef with the people who have dark skins. Have a beef with whomever made the dark skin. And maybe they do have a beef with the Creator of the universe. Maybe they do.
Interesting. Stay right there. More to come with Mr. Neely Fuller and the Compensatory Concept exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. I'm Brother Kahari.
The hardest thing to do at times is to make changes in your routine. Don't let that hold you back.
Oh, wait a minute. They told us we had it all, Jordan. Well, yeah, I guess in a way we are running out of oil.
Your opportunity is now to get up-to-the-minute information, great entertainment, and stimulating talk programs on your computer. Just log on to TalkTainmentRadio.com, click Listen Live to hear a program. TalkTainmentRadio.com can also be heard on your cell phone. Talktainment Radio. We go where you go.
Look out, automobiles. Here we come. Now that's radio. The world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
In 50 feet, turn left. Why are you driving so slowly?
After a few drinks, I'm taking it slow.
Well, you're not fooling the cop behind you.
What?
Get ready to pay in 0.1 miles.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
My name is Al Edmondson. I'm a business owner and community organizer. I want to encourage you to visit the King Lincoln District, our community. It's a great place to live, work, and worship. Catch a show at the Lincoln Theater. Enjoy smooth jazz at the King Arts Complex. Enjoy great food and visit our historical churches and newly remodeled homes. Live, work, and worship the King Lincoln District.
Welcome to today's lottery drawing. And today's winning numbers are not yours, not yours, and another number that's not yours. And the final number is not yours.
When it comes to having money, don't rely on luck. Brew your own coffee at home instead of buying that latte. Brown bag it to work instead of ordering it. Go to feedthepig.org for more free ideas on how to save. Feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
You got the power.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard. All right. Now, Mr. Fuller, let's go into your email bag or into your information that we try to do. We don't get to it every week, but we certainly are trying to. You have some things that have been brought to your attention that you might want to discuss, Mr. Fuller. We're going to devote that time to this. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Well, basically, it's what we've been talking about all along. I mean, and because it's all a part, it's seamless, really. I mean, you can't divide one thing from another, even though I do have the books that I have out, the textbook for victims of white supremacy that you can get by producejustice.com, and also the companion, the addition to the book, a compensatory codified counter-racist word guide, and that has words in it to show you how to use words, how not to use words, and what words to ask questions about, like words like patriotism even. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Words like America, what does that mean? What does it mean to be an actual American? How do you qualify to be an American? I mean, how many Americans are there? I mean, true Americans. When you say real Americanism, when you say Americanism, what are you really saying? When you say Africa, what are you really saying? Some people might say, well, I'm an African and I love Africa and whatnot. What does that really mean? And if you say you're an Asian, what does that really mean? I mean, we really need to look into the essence of what each word means before we start fighting about the words and arguing about the words. Give the words definitions. And now you have new words now that's coming up, like words like drones and drone warfare. Well, can an individual person be a drone? Maybe you don't have an aircraft that's a drone, or maybe you do. Because they say it now, what we call drones are aircraft. They're stealth aircraft, meaning aircraft that you can't detect, but they fly over, and you don't know that the aircraft is there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a plane up in the air, but you can't tell that the plane is there. You can set up electronic equipment, and you still can't detect whether or not there's anything up there at all. But then all of a sudden, you're vaporized by this aircraft that has snuck up on you and fired some type of missile. And then you have another word, collateral damage. You say, oh, we were trying to kill 2 people, but actually we killed 30. Well, we weren't intending to kill 30 people. We were just intending to kill 2. But the other people, the other 28 people, just happened to be in the area. So what would we call that? Would we call that terrorism? Would we call that justice? Would we call that counterterrorism? What would we call it? Well, we'll call it, let's think for a while. We'll call it collateral damage. And we will apologize. And we will compensate the relatives, because the people are no longer here, if they have any kin people and whatnot, and when they are burying them and all like that, well, what we'll do, we'll give them some money so they can buy hamburgers and Barbie dolls if they want to. And maybe, and call it square.
Yeah, we'll square it out.
Yes, right. Now, but see, it's one thing about that so-called droning. You can have drones in the form of individual persons. Now, what about that? What's up with that? Because individual persons just walking through an area can suddenly decide to start shooting people. Now, do you call that droning? Do you call that justice? Because that person probably has problems too.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way to settle it. So I'll settle it by just walking among a whole bunch of people and start shooting. They don't expect me to start shooting them. They didn't have any electronic equipment set up, to detect that I was going to start shooting. But that's what that drone, you might call it. They haven't called it that yet, but they could. See, it's just a matter of words. How do you use words? And that drone, if it's still alive after the shooting, can say, well, I wasn't intending to kill all those people, but that's collateral damage. I was intending to kill just 1 or 2. I killed 30, but the other 28 was collateral damage. So don't hold me responsible for that. That's the way the world is. Sometimes you just make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. So what kind of world are we really building? Or is it, who is really building it? Where do these ideas come from? Where does the equipment come from? And if you start talking about chemical warfare, that's another one. You got people out here with all kind of chemicals, and the whole world just might have to go to war because there's somebody who is hiding some chemicals that they may use illegally to kill people. You can kill people legally with some type of weapons, but you can't kill people legally with other type of weapons because that's just going too far.
Uh-huh.
All right? So we got to really find out who's got these chemicals hidden up under the ground somewhere and get rid of these chemicals so we can go back to killing people in the normal fashion, in the gentleman's agreement fashion, in the handshake fashion. Go to your neutral corners and come out killing in the fashion according to what? The rules that we have set for killing. See, we got to set rules for killing so that we can only kill so many people at a time and not kill everybody all over the place, but keep the killing under control.
That's right. I mean, you're messing with my fun and games here.
Yes, right. In other words, we're going to do this in a game-like fashion. That's why we call it war games. Mm-hmm. We have war games where we make a game of war. See what I mean? Games have to have rules. See? But now it's okay to kill people with some type of chemicals as long as you are not killing them with other type of chemicals. Case in point, there is a chemical called cocaine. That's okay. Go to it. Put the guns plus the cocaine, and you got a recipe for doing business as usual among dark-skinned people, among the coloreds, as they say in Godfather 1.
Mm-hmm.
Let them die.
The animals anyway.
The animals anyway. So put the cocaine among them. Then put the guns behind the cocaine, and we got a recipe there for a lot of fun to sit back and watch. Watch them kill each other over the chemicals called cocaine. Poisonous substances that even when they are able to get it, it's not going to give them nutrition. It's going to do harm to them. So we got a double whammy here. We got the guns and we got the poison. Both of them are a form of poison. Both of them are a form of gun. Both of them cause destruction. We're not going to put anything among these people that is constructive. Everything that we give them is going to have a non-constructive content, including the little mom-and-pop stores that we allow them to have that will sell alcohol, that will also sell artificial food, that will make them very unhealthy, so that they'll think that they are getting nutrition when all they're doing is adding pounds to their bodies that will give them heart attacks and other forms of ailments such as diabetes, etc., etc., etc. And we'll sit back and laugh at them because we pull a trick on them and they're not even aware of it. We are droning them all the time and they don't even know it.
So that's what you... Any other thoughts on this? Any other things that people have brought to your attention this past week, in addition to what's happening with the Navy Yard, that you might want to focus on, Mr. Fuller?
No, I think that's it for the time being because, like I said, it's all very seamless. One just blends into another. All of the areas of activity are interactive. Whether you're talking about economics, you're talking about education. That's the next area of activity. Economics is number one, education is number two, as I have in the book. But economics and education both go together.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Fuller.
Right.
We had talked about this war compensatory justice thing about maybe last week, I think it was. And lo and behold, we got another scenario. Would this be what you would call compensatory? I think you had called it under the area of war. Would this be close to what you were talking about when you talked about compensatory justice? Because I don't know
Nowhere close.
Okay, I don't know whether he took his life or not.
Nowhere close. Well, not only that, in maximum emergency compensatory action, nobody is harmed in any way except people who should be harmed, and that is racists or suspected racists. And this is determined by the person who commits the act. It's a special type of war. It's not like it's counter war, rather, supposed to be. It's not the absence of war. It's a form of war, but it's counter war, because counter war is directed against racism exclusively and against people who actually practice racism.
But I guess what I'm saying is I'm seeing, like, I think last year at this time, remember the L.A. guy, the policeman out in L.A., who went around and he said he was fighting against racism. Now this guy with Aaron Alexis it's said that he's fighting against racism. So there are a lot of pieces there, and I'm just wondering if it has anything to do with the compensatory justice. And you say it does not, correct?
Absolutely not, because it's very specific. Not only that, that's what I mean. I want to use that word specific over and over again, as it is written in the textbook for victims of white supremacy. It's exact, and so exact that I'm not even allowed by compensatory law, what I've written in the book. I'm not allowed to compare it with anything. And the act itself is exact, and no one is harmed, either directly or indirectly, in that act, except a person who is an active white supremacist or a white supremacist suspect. And the only other person who is harmed is the person who made the decision that these white supremacists should be harmed, because that person absolutely must terminate him or herself. Now, that's a description. I'm only allowed to describe what maximum emergency compensatory action is and what maximum emergency compensatory action for justice is not. I'm not allowed to, by law, compensatory law, to compare it with anything or even discuss it in comparison with anything.
So, Mr. Fuller, why was it developed then in the first place? What was the purpose of it?
Because, in essence, it's to de-glamorize the whole business of killing worldwide. That's the ultimate goal of it. Killing will continue and should continue. Some people should be dead. They really should. But if you're talking about counter-racism and killing, this is the way it should be done. And the survivors...
Now, when you say some people should be dead, Mr. Fuller, you have to explain to me what you mean by that.
People who are the cause of the problems and who won't stop. You can't talk to them. But nobody's to make that determination except an individual. See, I can't make that determination. When people ask me, do I believe in maximum emergency compensatory action or maximum emergency compensatory action for justice, I say no. And the evidence is I haven't done it. It's only the person that does it. That person is dealing with what you call death, the difference between existence and non-existence. That should be taken seriously by everybody on the planet. The white supremacists has made a joke out of death. And all of their victims, black people, make jokes out of killing people. This has got to stop. Killing people is serious business. The most serious business that you can take. When somebody dies, that is a serious situation, particularly when the person didn't have to die. The person came out of somebody's womb. That person should be nurtured to his fullest glory, meaning doing constructive things.
So I see what you're saying. You're saying people like a Hitler, for example, or people who set out to just hurt people, you need to be able to stop them from doing that hurt.
The best way to stop it is by repeatedly having people kill people who also kill themselves, so that at some point people say, this is nonsense.
So it stops all.
Stop glorifying.
Yeah,
stop glorifying killing.
Stop glorifying killing and stop it. Okay.
Yes,
all right.
right.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be.